you gonna help me? Are you gonna help? Yeah? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I'm going to walk you through how I make my chocolate sugar cookies. This is an alternative for me since I'm not a huge fan of regular sugar cookies, but I still wanted to make cutout cookies that I would actually eat. So I found this recipe online, and I'm going to show you how I make them as I prepare for Christmas. So I'm going to start by putting my dry ingredients together. So I put the flour in the bowl already. And I added some cocoa powder. See, I think it's about half a cup, maybe. And then I go ahead, after I add the cocoa powder, we'll just put a little bit more in actually, because I like my cookies extra chocolatey, and I'll set that aside for when I roll out the cookies. And as you can see, I like to put stuff away as I go. And now I'm going to add the cocoa powder, the baking powder. And make sure it's baking powder, not baking soda, because you don't want your cookies to be ginormously huge. And then I forgot to add the salt, but then you have to add salt. And then you're going to mix it together. As you can see, I'm doing here. Just mixing it all up until it looks like it's mixed up. I'm just doing this by hand, but you could probably use like a whisk I'm just using a fork because that's what I had out at the time. So the next step is to mix the butter and the sugar together. So I'm starting with, I believe, 1.5 cups of butter. This is supposed to be room temperature. So I left it out for like 5 to 10 minutes and it was fine. I mean, I pulled out of the fridge like 10 minutes before, it was fine. So next I'm going to add the sugar. As you can see, we keep our flour and sugar in like little baggies because it keeps the bugs out. So as you can see here, once I can get the scoop out, I am going to add the sugar. There we go, I've added it. Now I'm going to seal the bag up and I'm going to go ahead and start the mixer. And we're just going to mix the sugar and butter together until it's pretty well mixed up. So now we're going to finish adding the wet ingredients in. So I've just added 1 egg into the mixture. And you're going to do this while the mixer is still going. Just keep it on like a really low speed so you're not getting stuff all over the place. And now I'm going to add the vanilla into the mix. And I think I sped the mixer up to make it mix a little faster. There we go. To make it mix a little bit faster, but don't do this when you put the dry ingredients in because it's going to make a huge mess. Now I'm going to add the dry ingredients in. I sped this clip up a little bit because it was a whole like 3-minute process. And you guys don't want to see that, and I don't want to have to voice record over that. So here you're going to see I'm adding the dry ingredients in a little bit at a time so it doesn't make a huge mess, even though I kept backing up every time it made a mess. I was going way too fast, but again, we're going to keep the mixer mixing while I'm doing this. And I still kept making a mess, even though I've been trying not to make a mess. I'm still doing it anyway. So once that's in, I'm just going to let it mix itself up for a little bit. I turned it off so I could kind of scrape the bowl and make sure that all of it gets mixed in, so we don't have like bits of floury cocoa powder. And I also helped clean the beater off because the mixer tends to have a little bit of trouble when mixing this dough up because it is a little bit thicker. But we do want the dough to be relatively thick by this point, which is what the flour does. As you can see here, I have the parchment paper already lined out, and I'm going to put some cocoa powder on that. And that's just so that it's kind of like the flour part of making cookies. It just kind of makes sure that the dough doesn't stick. And I use cocoa powder for a couple of reasons. One being that it makes the cookies more chocolatey, so it doesn't have that floury taste. Also, it keeps my cookies looking very chocolatey and not very white. And as you can see now, I'm going to start putting the cookie dough onto the 2 trays. And I'm just splitting them up and as evenly in half as I can. And I'm going to go ahead and roll them out. And so I found that if you roll them out before you put them in the fridge, it saves that extra step of I have to roll it out. Once you take the cookie dough out of the fridge, it's already ready to go, and you just have to cut it out. Of course, this makes it really hard, though, because at this point, it's not, like, solidified enough. It's still kind of sticky, and so you use a lot of cocoa powder on both the rolling pin and on the dough to keep it from sticking. I went ahead and put this in the fridge for about 3 hours before I started cutting out the cookies. So here I'm just rolling out my cookie dough again because I did a really bad job last time, but here would be also where I would preheat my oven to 350 degrees, and the cookies are going to go in for 8 to 10 minutes. And I put mine in for 8 minutes because I like mine a little bit softer, but if you like yours a little bit crunchier, you can put them in for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and get to cutting out the cookies, which I fast forwarded through because they took way too long. Is the finished product. Ice them later. So, for the icing, I just dumped a bunch of powdered sugar, milk, and vanilla into the mixer. I kind of just experimented a little bit with how thick or thin I wanted it. So if it was too thin for me, I would dump in powdered sugar, and if it was too thick, I would put milk in. And when it came to the vanilla, I just kind of dumped in enough to taste. And you can use anything you want. I just used vanilla to make a more vanilla icing for my cookies. And mine turned out kind of thin, so if you don't want yours to be as thin as mine, just add a little bit of powdered sugar. As you're going to see in a little bit, I'm going to add some more powdered sugar in. This icing dries pretty quickly, like within 15 to 20 minutes. So once you get this made, you kind of have to ice your cookies quickly or it's going to dry out. That's what the consistency of it should be basically like. I know you can't really see that because I'm standing in front of the light. But then you can just add whatever coloring that you want there, and then just add whatever coloring that you want. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is decorate the cookies. I have 2 cookies that look like my cats, so I'm going to decorate them. And yeah, so I'm making orange frosting right now because my cats are orange. can hear them in the background too. They're meowing right now. They heard their names and now they want to be in the house. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. This might be a little too thin for what I'm doing. We'll see. A little bit more. This one broke, so I have to put a little bit more. So this one's going to be scotchy because it's, you can't even see it. It's going to be scotchy because it's orange. Oh! And because it's broken. Oh no, it broke. Here. The scotchy one broke. I'll just try to put some more icing on it and see if that'll hold it together. Hopefully this will hold it together when it dries. And I'll just use this area in front of me as my decorating area. And we'll wait for it to dry and then we'll add stuff to it. I got this one here is cuppy. And so for this one I'm just going to do orange on the ears. And kind of around the face. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white in the middle. This cuppy's white. Got a white face. These are going to get really messy. Well, I just dumped. This will harden, this frosting will harden as it dries. Right there. So it'll get harder. You can tell I'm not an amazing artist, but we're getting it done. That looks a little bit like cuppy. Hold on, let me see if I can get a little more orange right there where this white is. Maybe not. It's just gonna fall off. That's okay. And there's a big puddle of orange. I'm gonna go get something to wipe my hand. I'm gonna wipe my hands out really quick. And there's a big puddle of orange. And I think I might have made this icing just a little too thin. Or I'm gonna have to go back with another round later. Because it's all just falling off the cookie, which is fine because that's kind of the point. That it was supposed to be rather thin. Try making this just a tiny bit darker and see if that makes it make it more orange. There we go. That might make it stand out more from the white. It's a little too late now that I've already iced this, but so here's what they look like. We got some Mickeys, some hearts. These hearts were actually supposed to have this, like, you can't really tell, but it's like an orange and a green and a red and a blue pattern on top of white, but it didn't really work. And there's some Christmas trees, stockings, and some angels, and then there's my cat ones. You can kind of tell that they're my cats, I think. But yeah, I think my problem was I made the icing a little too thin, and therefore it kind of made a mess. But there's this year's Christmas cookies.
I didn't kill my husband. God. Margaret did.
Where's Margaret?
She is Margaret. Guppy sure likes that water, doesn't have tea. She actually drinking it or sniffing it?
She's drinking it.
Guppy, you're really gonna have to pee.
She doesn't care. It's okay, Dad. You got to clean it up. And you got to clean the litter box, Daddy.
Yeah, but remind. If I have enough money, I'll have to get more.
Mom, it might be two friends actually.
What the?